in Ukraine, and I don't know if people are paying attention, but the Russians have launched another major offensive as of this morning. The Ukrainians are in big trouble, and the Republicans are holding up money for Ukraine and for Israel because of our situation on the southern border. And no matter what is said now, we better understand all the variables. Look, Beowulf, let me be blunt. If this were January of 1968, I could not have predicted the Tet Offensive. I could not have predicted Eugene McCarthy almost beating Lyndon Johnson in New Hampshire. I could not have predicted Bobby Kennedy jumping into the race for president. I could not have predicted the ultimate abdication of Lyndon Johnson in his speech of March 31st. I could not have predicted the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr., of Robert Kennedy, and of course, I could not have predicted the turmoil in Chicago. I did predict the election of Richard Nixon, but that was my partisan view in those days. But do you understand, the reason I'm saying this to you and to those listeners is because there are so many variables which we will confront in the next months that I don't understand, Beowulf, why you and I aren't talking every single day.
And on top of that, we have the fact that we may be facing yet again a government shutdown. And the very person that we just talked about in regard to having been integral to the attempt to take down our government, Speaker Johnson, is under pressure to basically have another government shutdown. He, for the moment, seems to be agreeing to what will extend the budget agreements for the foreseeable future. He does not want another 45-day stopgap measure has been put in place the last couple of times. But if it's difficult to believe, but there are people further to the right than him that want to shut down the government. He does not want to do that at this time. So in addition to the presidential rate,
right.
we have the government that may be not funded at the same time as all.
You're absolutely right. The government shutdown is a real possibility. But let me tell you, it should be a national disgrace that Speaker Johnson is Speaker of the House of Representatives. He is still an election denier. And by the way, the Republican leadership, the entire leadership of the House of Representative Republicans, including Elise Stefanik and including, well, the Speaker himself and Steve Scalise, have all endorsed Donald Trump for the presidency of the United States. Now, what does that tell you? Because they're all essentially saying that the election of 2020 was fraudulent, that Joe Biden is an illegitimate president. This is something that is unparalleled in history of this country. I could talk about 1876. I could talk about Samuel J. Tilden versus Rutherford B. Hayes. Yeah. I could talk about the fact that they called Hayes, who won the election in the Electoral College, 185 to 184, although he lost a popular vote by 250,000 votes. You know what they called Hayes? Your fraudulency. But this kind, the nation healed. There was an election in 1880. You know what's stunning to me? Essentially, what we face now is a replay of an election, which the Republicans have not conceded. And that, to me, equally distressing. If you believe in democracy, if you believe in the American system, what has happened is absolutely incomprehensible.
We have to get back to a place where we at least agree, both sides of the political spectrum, on the basic facts. We're not there right now. And no, I don't know if this election will even solve that, but we have to get back to a place. And I really think that it is the responsibility of us in the media. I think that we have, perhaps not you, perhaps not I, but broadly speaking, many people in the media have played into the idea that there are these two separate spheres and never the twain shall meet. And I think it is critical that we find places of engagement so that we can come to agree on what is the basic reality of our situation. If we don't do that,
let me tell you, democracy is under threat.
Yes.
And whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, if you believe in democracy and you believe in the Constitution of the United States, that document must be upheld. Adlai Stevenson, a Democrat, two-time candidate for president, former governor of Illinois, spoke at the Godkin Lectures at Harvard University back in 1954. And he said, America's strength, its greatness, does not come from its wealth. It comes from its documents of freedom, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, The idea of America is what has made us great. And I believe that Adlai Stevenson was 100% correct. We as Americans, I don't care whether you vote for Trump or Biden, we have to embrace the idea that when an election is over, it's over. You know what amazes me? Here you have a situation where we did not have the orderly transition of power that we should have had because of January 6th. Donald Trump refused to attend the presidential inauguration. Donald Trump, and we've heard it on the tape in his concession after January 6th, said, which wasn't a concession, he said, "I'm not conceding anything." We have to get back to basics in this country, because I believe that our security, your security and my security, hinges on the integrity of the American system. I'm horrified by what is happening. Now, let me just say the Democrats are being charged by Donald Trump with weaponizing the Justice Department. And as you know, Joe Biden's son is now going to be indicted for contempt of Congress as of this morning. And that's Congress, that's not the courts. But I believe, and I hope everyone listening to me agrees, that the integrity of our nation is at stake. How the world views us is at stake. And, well, the election is over. The result is known. The will of the people has been shown. And it's time for Donald Trump and the Republicans to admit it. And if they don't, I hope they go down to a crashing defeat.
Hear, hear. I don't think they will, and I absolutely hope that they do. By the way, all these accusations against Joe Biden with regard to his son Hunter, there hasn't been a single piece of solid evidence indicating any corruption on the part of Joe Biden. And yet, it was at the end of last week, actually, the Democrats in the House of Representatives, led by Jamie Raskin, came up with not only facts, but a 156-page report called White House for Sale, detailing nothing to do with Joe Biden, but the ways in which foreign governments paid Donald Trump during his presidency, which is contrary to ethics, contrary to law, and contrary to the emoluments clause of the Constitution. It's astounding. And I am in the process, I will say, of going through on this podcast and reading the entire 156-page report for those who are not able to spend the time reading themselves. It is a tremendous document. It is a tremendous document. $5.5 million from China alone. It is just atrocious. And
now look what Saudi Arabia. Look
yes.
at the Trump family's benefit from Saudi Arabia, including Jared Kushner's billions of dollars. It's absolutely a scandal. And you know, I don't begrudge Democrats and Republicans the battle for the future of the nation. There are real differences between Democrats and Republicans, but the fact that the corruption is so pervasive and on the Republican side, and certainly if Joe Biden is innocent of all these things, then let it be. Let Hunter Biden go to jail if that's where he belongs. And by the way, I have the same thing to say about Jared Kushner and the Trump family. Yeah. If they have violated law, let them be punished. But this is a scandal of such vast proportion. I said to somebody the other day, I want to teach a course in 20 years on this whole history, because people won't believe what we have faced and what we face.
Thinking about Richard Nixon and what he did in order to precipitate his leaving office seems almost small by comparison with what has been perpetrated during the last several years in this country. It really is frightening. Yeah.
Completely inconsequential. If Richard Nixon were alive, I think he'd be thrilled to see his vindication in a way. But it doesn't excuse what Nixon did.
It doesn't.
And I'm a great supporter of Richard Nixon over many, many years, and I worked for him, and I'm very proud of that. But he made terrible mistakes for which he faced a penalty, and he should have faced a penalty. And those of us who worked for him understood what had happened. Let me point out, just referring to Donald Trump for a moment, if I were running the Democratic campaign, I would have all of those who worked for Donald Trump in the cabinet, in the White House, all of those who say they will never vote for him again. I would have each one of them make a 1-minute statement. I'd string it together as a 1-hour commercial And let me tell you something, it would have a hell of an impact if people would listen. But that's the key. The people around Trump who have any ethics have walked away and said he must never be president again. And I want to commend again Liz Cheney's book. If there is one book that I believe should be required reading by every American, it is Liz Cheney's new book, and I urge you to buy it. By the way, I went into a bookstore, wanted to buy it, they were sold out, which is very reassuring to me.
You know, that is an excellent idea you had for a commercial for the 2024 campaign. I need to get you together with the Lincoln campaign. There's some interesting crossover there to be had. Maybe they can.
May I tell you, it would be a high honor and great personal privilege to be able to do that.
John, thank you so much for being with us today on Facepalm America. Again, John Rothmann, he is the host of Around the Political World with John Rothmann. If you take just 10 minutes of your day each morning and listen to his podcast, you will get a perspective which will enlighten and enrich your life. So I urge you to go to Around the Political World with John Rothmann, which is available on PERT9, every podcasting platform. John, thank you so much for being with us today, again, on Facepalm America.
Thank you, Bill. Talk to you next week.
Thanks again for listening to Facepalm America. I want to thank Ace Elson and Rosabelle Hine for being the producers of this show. Please go to facepalmamerica.com for more information on the program, and rate and review this podcast if you can. If you have enjoyed what you've heard, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other platforms where you can rate and review this podcast. Give us a mention. It really helps increase this program's reach. And until next time, enjoy the day.